The grocery store parking lot looks normal. Cars pulling in. People pushing carts. A child crying somewhere near the entrance. But when you step inside, something feels different. There's a strange silence between the aisles. Not quiet, just tense. You notice it first in the canned food section. Gaps on the shelves, empty price tags. A woman reaches for the last few cans of soup, hesitates, then grabs all of them. No one says anything, but everyone is thinking the same thing. What happens when food stops being easy to find? For decades, modern life has trained us to believe the system will always work. Trucks will arrive overnight. Stores will restock by morning. Shortages are temporary. Convenience is permanent. But history tells another story. Economic shocks. Natural disasters. Supply chain failures. Moments when the shelves didn't refill not for days, sometimes not for months. And in those moments, a simple truth becomes painfully clear. Not all food is created equal. Some foods spoil in days. Some last a few months. And a rare group of foods can last for years. These are the foods smart households quietly stock. Not out of fear, but out of preparation. Because when uncertainty rises, the most valuable thing you can own isn't money. It's time. Time to think. Time to adapt. Time to protect the people you love. And the right foods can buy you that time. Let's start with one of the most fascinating substances on Earth. Honey. Golden, thick, sweet, and almost impossible to destroy. Archaeologists once opened ancient tombs in Egypt and discovered sealed jars of honey buried with the dead. They expected dust. Instead, they found honey that was still perfectly edible, thousands of years old and untouched by time. The reason lies in science. Honey has extremely low moisture content and natural antibacterial compounds. Bacteria simply can't survive in it. Over the years, honey may crystallize. It may turn cloudy or grainy, but that doesn't mean it has gone bad. It just means it's waiting. Place the jar in warm water, stir slowly, and it returns to liquid gold. In uncertain times, honey becomes more than food. It becomes energy. It becomes medicine. It becomes a symbol of stability in an unstable world. Next comes a staple that has fed civilizations for centuries. White rice. Simple. Affordable. Often overlooked. But stored correctly in airtight containers, away from heat and moisture, white rice can last 30 years or more. Think about that. A bag of rice you buy today could still feed your family decades from now. Across Asia, Africa, and parts of the Americas, rice has carried populations through famine and war. It doesn't spoil quickly. It provides dense calories. And it stretches meals when fresh food becomes scarce. In survival situations, versatility becomes power. Rice can be breakfast. Rice can be dinner. Rice can be the difference between hunger and hope. Then there's something even more basic. Salt. White crystals sitting quietly in a shaker on your table. It seems ordinary now. But there was a time when salt was worth more than gold. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. Entire trade routes existed just to move salt across continents. And there's a reason for that. Salt doesn't expire. Ever. It preserves meat. It balances fluids in the body. It keeps nerves and muscles functioning. Without salt, survival becomes harder than most people realize. When modern supply chains falter, items that seem trivial suddenly become priceless. Another pantry item that stands the test of time is sugar. Granulated sugar, when stored in dry conditions, can last indefinitely. It may harden into solid blocks. It may clump together like stone, but it never truly spoils. In crisis situations, sugar provides fast, accessible energy, something the human body desperately needs under stress. It also serves another purpose people rarely talk about: morale. A sweet taste can lift spirits in dark moments. It can comfort children. It can remind families that normal life still exists somewhere beyond the chaos. Preparation isn't just about calories. It's about resilience, physical and emotional. And the foods that last forever help build both. If you look closely at history, you'll notice a pattern. When uncertainty grows, people stop thinking about luxury. They stop thinking about convenience. They start thinking about survival. And one of the most powerful survival foods ever discovered is something incredibly humble: dried beans. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lentils. They don't look impressive sitting in a bag on a grocery shelf. They don't feel urgent to buy when life is comfortable. But when fresh food disappears, dried beans become a lifeline. Stored in a cool, dry place, they can last for decades. Yes, decades. They're packed with protein, fiber, and complex carbohydrates. They release energy slowly, keeping hunger under control longer than many processed foods. In times of crisis, the ability to stay full becomes a strategic advantage. Hunger clouds judgment. Fatigue weakens decision-making. Foods like beans help stabilize both the body and the mind. And when combined with another long-lasting staple, they form one of the most reliable survival meals on Earth: rice and beans. Together, they create a complete protein. Together, they feed billions of people every single day. There's a reason this simple combination has survived centuries of hardship. It works. Another quiet hero of long-term food storage is rolled oats. Lightweight, affordable, easy to cook. When sealed properly, oats can remain edible for years. But their true strength lies in what they do inside the body. Oats stabilize blood sugar. They provide steady, sustained energy. They help people stay focused when stress levels rise. In uncertain environments, mental clarity becomes just as important as physical strength. A bowl of oatmeal may not seem like much, until it's the only reliable breakfast you have. Now let's move to something most people never think about as a survival food: soy sauce. Dark, salty. Its high sodium content acts as a natural preservative, allowing unopened bottles to last for years without refrigeration. But the real power of soy sauce isn't just preservation, it's transformation. In survival situations, meals often become repetitive and bland. Plain rice, plain beans, plain grains. Flavor fatigue is real. After days or weeks of eating the same food, people begin to lose appetite. They eat less, they weaken faster. A small splash of soy sauce can change everything. Suddenly, a basic meal feels comforting, familiar, almost normal. Sometimes survival isn't about having more food. It's about making the food you have easier to eat. Another long-lasting liquid with surprising importance is vinegar. White vinegar, stored properly, can last indefinitely. It's not just a cooking ingredient. It's a survival tool. It can help preserve vegetables when refrigeration fails. It can be used for basic sanitation. It can even play a role in simple medical or cleaning situations. In uncertain times, items with multiple uses become incredibly valuable. Prepared households don't just stock calories. They stock versatility. Next on the list is powdered milk. Unlike fresh milk, which spoils quickly, powdered milk can last many years when sealed from air and moisture. It provides calcium, protein, and essential nutrients that are difficult to replace during food shortages. For families with children, this becomes especially critical. Nutrition gaps don't show immediately, but over time, they can weaken immune systems and reduce energy levels. Powdered milk acts like a nutritional safety net. It's something you hope you never need, but you're grateful to have when options begin to disappear. Then there's a food with a reputation as tough as the conditions it was designed for: hardtack. It's nothing more than baked flour, water, and salt. No sugar, no oil, no softness, just durability. For centuries, sailors crossing vast oceans survived on hardtack. Soldiers carried it into wars where supply lines were uncertain. It could last for years without refrigeration. It wasn't meant to be delicious. It was meant to keep people alive. Modern survival foods have become more advanced, but the philosophy behind them hasn't changed. Simple ingredients, maximum shelf life, reliable energy. Because when the unexpected happens, reliability becomes priceless. As technology advanced, humanity found new ways to fight one of its oldest enemies: food spoilage. For thousands of years, survival depended on drying, salting, fermenting, and storing whatever nature provided. But today, there is a modern solution that has quietly revolutionized long-term food storage: freeze-dried food. At first glance, freeze-dried meals look almost unreal. Lightweight packages, bright colors, perfect shapes. It's hard to believe they can last 25 years or more. But the science behind them is powerful. Freeze-drying removes nearly all moisture from food while preserving its nutrients and structure. The result is something that can sit untouched for decades, waiting for a moment when it might truly matter. Add water, and within minutes, fruits regain their sweetness. Vegetables regain their texture. Entire meals come back to life. In a world where supply chains stretch across continents, this kind of stability becomes a form of security. Because when transportation stops, when deliveries slow, when store shelves begin to thin out, food that can wait patiently for years suddenly becomes invaluable. Another category of food that has quietly protected families through difficult times is canned food. Canned meats, canned vegetables, Canned soups, canned fish. Many people assume that the date printed on a can is a strict deadline. In reality, it's often a quality guideline. If a can remains sealed, undamaged, and stored in a cool environment, the food inside can remain safe far longer than most people expect. During economic downturns or natural disasters, canned goods often disappear from shelves first. Why? Because they require no preparation beyond opening. They provide complete meals, and they offer something incredibly important in uncertain situations. When stress levels are high, when electricity may be unreliable, when routines are disrupted, simple food becomes powerful food. Then there's something sweet, rare, and deeply rooted in tradition. Pure maple syrup. Not imitation syrup. Not flavored sugar water. Real maple syrup. Its high sugar concentration gives it an impressive shelf life, especially when unopened. Beyond calories, maple syrup carries emotional weight. It reminds people of warm breakfasts, family kitchens, simpler mornings. In survival scenarios, memory can be as nourishing as food itself. Comfort foods help maintain hope, and hope can be the difference between endurance and despair. Now let's talk about a pantry ingredient most households barely notice. Cornstarch, a fine white powder used to thicken sauces and soups. Stored properly, cornstarch can last indefinitely. Its value lies in adaptability. When fresh ingredients become limited, cooking often turns into improvisation, stretching a meal, making thin soups feel hearty, creating texture where none exists. Small tools like cornstarch can transform survival cooking from basic sustenance into something more satisfying. Another compact yet powerful addition to long-term storage is bouillon cubes, tiny blocks packed with salt, seasoning, and concentrated flavor. They take almost no space. They weigh almost nothing. Yet they can turn plain water, rice, or beans into a warm, nourishing broth. In cold environments or emotionally difficult situations, hot soup does more than fill the stomach. It calms the mind. Prepared households understand this. Survival is not just about staying alive. It's about staying functional. And sometimes, a simple cup of broth can help someone keep going one more day. There's another item that rarely gets mentioned in survival discussions, yet millions of people rely on it every single morning. Coffee. Not the fresh brewed kind from a cafe. Not the specialty beans ground moments before brewing. We're talking about instant coffee. Simple. Lightweight. Long-lasting. Stored in sealed containers, instant coffee can remain usable for years. At first, this might seem unimportant compared to rice or beans, but experienced preppers and disaster survivors often say the same thing. Routine keeps people stable. When the world feels unpredictable, small daily rituals become anchors. A hot cup of coffee at sunrise. A familiar smell in an unfamiliar situation. Caffeine also improves alertness and concentration, both critical in high-stress environments. In prolonged emergencies, mental endurance can be just as valuable as food itself. Another staple with remarkable longevity is dry pasta. Spaghetti, macaroni, penne. Kept away from moisture, dry pasta can last for many years without losing its ability to nourish. It's calorie-dense, affordable, and incredibly versatile. Pasta can be paired with canned sauces, beans, vegetables, or simply seasoned broth. In times when fresh food becomes rare, versatility becomes a survival skill. The more ways you can prepare a single ingredient, the longer your pantry can sustain you. Next is something most people don't think of as food, but its role in survival is undeniable. Baking soda. It doesn't expire in the traditional sense and can be stored for extremely long periods. It helps with cooking and baking when traditional ingredients become scarce. But beyond that, baking soda has dozens of practical uses. Cleaning surfaces. Neutralizing odors. Supporting basic hygiene. In emergency situations, multi-purpose items save space, money, and time. Prepared households focus not just on eating, but on maintaining livable conditions. Another overlooked category of long-lasting nutrition is shelf-stable fats. Powdered butter. Ghee. Certain preserved oils. Fat is the most energy-dense nutrient available to the human body. Gram for gram, it provides more than twice the calories of carbohydrates or protein. During food shortages, access to fats often disappears quickly. Fresh dairy spoils. Cooking oils become scarce, and people begin to feel constantly hungry despite eating grains. Long-lasting fat sources help solve that problem. They provide sustained energy. They help the body absorb vitamins. They improve the taste and texture of otherwise plain survival meals. In difficult times, food that satisfies becomes food that strengthens. Now consider survival ration bars. Engineered for disaster scenarios, these compact bars are designed to last 5 years or more. They withstand extreme temperatures. They require no preparation. They deliver concentrated nutrition in small portions. Emergency agencies around the world stock them for hurricanes, earthquakes, and evacuations. They represent a shift in how modern society approaches preparedness. Instead of reacting to crises, some households are quietly planning ahead. Because preparedness isn't about panic. It's about reducing uncertainty. When others are rushing to empty shelves, prepared families already have options. They have time to think clearly, time to make rational decisions, time to focus on safety rather than scarcity. And sometimes, that time becomes the most valuable resource of all. If you study major crises throughout history, one lesson appears again and again. The problem is rarely just the disaster itself. The real problem is how fast normal life can disappear. A storm hits. A financial system shakes. Transportation slows. Suddenly, store shelves don't refill the way they used to. At first, people assume it's temporary. They buy a little extra. They tell themselves things will return to normal by next week. But sometimes, next week looks exactly the same. And that's when preparation stops being an abstract idea. It becomes reality. Households begin to realize that long-lasting foods are more than emergency supplies. They are a form of independence. When you can feed your family without relying on daily deliveries, you gain something incredibly powerful: flexibility. You can wait out price spikes. You can avoid crowded stores. You can make decisions calmly instead of reacting in fear. One of the final categories of food that supports this kind of independence is dried fruit. Raisins. Dates. Dried apricots. Stored correctly, many dried fruits can last for years. They provide natural sugars, fiber, and essential minerals. They also break the monotony of survival diets, heavy in grains and canned goods. In stressful situations, variety helps maintain appetite and morale. Another overlooked long-term item is whole spices. Peppercorns, cloves, cinnamon sticks. Unlike ground spices, whole spices retain flavor and potency for extremely long periods. They turn simple ingredients into real meals. A pot of rice with the right spices doesn't just feed the body, it feeds the senses. Prepared households understand that survival isn't meant to feel like punishment. It's meant to feel sustainable. Next comes something even more basic: clean water storage paired with purification tools. Because food without water is useless. While water itself doesn't expire, access to safe drinking water can change overnight during disasters. Stocking long-lasting foods must always be paired with a plan for hydration. Filtration systems. Purification tablets. Stored reserves. These become silent partners to every bag of rice and every jar of honey. Then there's the concept many people overlook until it's too late: rotation. Long-term food storage isn't about buying once and forgetting forever. It's about building a system. Using what you store, replacing what you use, keeping your pantry active and ready. Prepared families don't live in constant fear of catastrophe. They simply understand that stability is never guaranteed. And the foods that last the longest help bridge the gap between uncertainty and recovery. Because eventually, crises end. Supply chains restart. Markets stabilize. Fresh food returns. But the families who planned ahead suffer less while waiting. They experience fewer sleepless nights, fewer desperate trips to empty stores. They maintain control in situations where control is rare. And in a world that is becoming increasingly unpredictable, that control may be one of the most valuable assets anyone can have. Preparation has never been about predicting the future perfectly. No one knows exactly when a crisis will arrive or what form it will take. Sometimes it's a natural disaster that shuts down an entire region overnight. Sometimes it's an economic shift that slowly makes everyday necessities harder to afford. Sometimes it's a supply chain disruption that begins quietly, until one morning you notice the shelves look different, less full, less predictable, less certain. Modern life is built on the assumption that abundance is permanent, but abundance is fragile. It depends on transportation systems working without interruption. It depends on global cooperation. It depends on energy, labor, weather, and stability aligning at the same time. When even one of those factors changes, the effects can ripple outward faster than most people expect. That's why long-lasting foods are more than just items in a pantry. They are buffers against chaos. They buy time when time becomes scarce. They reduce pressure when pressure rises. They allow families to focus on safety, health, and decision-making instead of panic. Think about the difference between two households during a sudden shortage. One rushes to crowded stores, unsure of what they'll find. They face rising prices, long lines, and growing anxiety. The other stays home. They open their pantry and see rice, beans, canned meals, honey, dried fruit, and shelf-stable staples waiting patiently. They still feel concern, of course they do. But they also feel something else: control. Preparedness doesn't eliminate uncertainty, but it transforms how people experience it. Instead of reacting emotionally, they respond strategically. Instead of fearing every headline, they observe and adapt. And instead of depending entirely on outside systems, they build a small but powerful layer of self-reliance. This mindset isn't about expecting the worst. It's about respecting reality. History shows us that disruptions happen, that economies shift, that nature can be unpredictable. Yet history also shows something hopeful. Communities recover, supply chains rebuild, life continues. The goal of preparation is not to live in survival mode forever. It's to create a bridge between the moment stability is lost and the moment stability returns. Long-lasting foods form the foundation of that bridge. They sit quietly in cupboards and storage bins, asking for nothing. But when the unexpected arrives, they give everything: calories, nutrition, comfort, time. And sometimes, time is the difference between hardship and resilience. So, the next time you walk through a grocery store and see fully stocked aisles, bright lights, and endless choices, take a moment to appreciate it. Then take another moment to prepare. Because empty shelves don't send invitations. They don't announce their arrival. They simply appear. And when they do, the question won't be whether food shortages are real. The question will be whether you were ready.